A great show. All right, we are live. John, how you doing this fine evening?
I'm exhausted, TJ. Work's been a
Same,
bitch
man.
this
Same.
week.
Oh, today has been long, bro. This is like work was just awful. And then I got back, it's like, man, it's the show must go on, but whew, I'm feeling it.
TJ, one day narrator will give us enough money that we don't have to work anymore.
I know, right? Yeah,
that's my retirement
plan. Goal. There is narrator's our retirement plan. $6 at a time. But
every little bit counts.
There's a phase in my life when I was obsessed with the band Queen. And I mean, who hasn't had that kind of phase? Come on, like what was that?
Got him here.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, the boys. But I remember, I was in China, and I bought a ton of bootleg DVDs and bootleg CDs while I was there for super cheap. It was funny because, as one does, yeah. And the CDs were really funny. I bought a Queen Greatest Hits CD set. It was like 3 CDs, and a lot of the words are misspelled. It was just really funny, but it was a bootleg. But there was a song that I had never heard before by Queen called "The Show Must Go On." And I don't know, you know. Oh, it's so good, man! Yeah. It's so good.
It's so epic. It's just like, oh my god! Like there's nothing like.
Yes. No, I've never heard a song like it before. Like it sounds like borderline operatic.
Yeah, and that's the word I would use to describe it, operatic.
Yeah, and hearing it from Freddie Mercury, who had like, I don't know, minutes left to live when he performed, that's like, Jesus, that's incredible. So when I think of The Show Must Go On, I was like, God, if Freddie Mercury could do this with AIDS, man. Okay, TJ, you can muster up the strength to talk into a microphone for a little bit.
That's so fun. Like people think of like inspirational people. I've never considered Freddie Mercury to be one of them, but like you're right. You're right. That is very inspirational.
I love Freddie Mercury, man.
I love him too. Yeah,
he's so funny. Like so I liked how much of a petty bitch he was so many times. Like I'm someone who's not petty. Like I don't get pettiness or spite. It's just not me. But every now and then I'll see an example of it that's very humorous. And he didn't like the Sex Pistols for whatever reasons. I don't know. And so in the Sex Pistols, you had Sid Vicious, and they were asking him about it. He's like, oh yeah, the Sex Pistols. I got that one guy. What's his name? Like Simon Ferocious or something ridiculous like that. And I was like, oh, that's good. I love that, man. That's fantastic. Simon Ferocious. Yeah.
You thought the gay queens in America were snippy. Just wait till you hear the British ones.
The Brits, man. The Brits are fantastic. I love. He also had like just the stories of like the people like he chilled with. He loved Princess Diana. They were really close. And I didn't know.
Not surprising
one bit, right? And so she hated being a royal, you know, as they all end up doing, ironically. And she felt like a prisoner, you know, in the palace and everything. And my girlfriend told me the story. I looked up, it was true. He snuck her out of the palace, like in the trunk of his car one night. Like he stuffed her and just drove off with her, and then brought her back later that night. No one knew she was gone. I was like, oh, that's awesome, man. Freddie Mercury.
That's so funny.
We always lose the good ones, man. We always lose. Although I'm not happy Freddie Mercury's dead, but he would still be alive had he not. I mean, he'd probably be like 70 something. But I do think sometimes about the people we lost too young, like Freddie Mercury or Tupac or Biggie or Aaliyah or Jimi Hendrix, anybody. And it's like, man, what if they'd have lived another 50, 60 years and turned out to be like a right winger? Like how disappointing that would be. Like how the money got to them and they're like, oh yeah, now we're big Trump people. Like, oh, that's kind of sad to see.
Yeah, so there's examples like
plenty of examples.
Jerry Seinfeld, I feel like is an example of that, where he just like lived too long. Like, like he would have, if he died like 10 years ago, it would have been sad, but he would have been fine. And he's starting to go down that path where it's like he's going to ruin his whole legacy.
It do happen. All right. What do we want to tackle here with these great topics?
I say we start in Ohio. It's a small little one, gets us going, lets us touch on a lot of things. And we'll just go.
I like this. So, all right, guys. I don't know if you've seen this, but I've been saying for a long time that the polls aren't necessarily accurately reflecting what's going on in the United States these days, because the main narrative is that the Republicans are strong. The Republicans are just charging through. And I'm not saying that the polls are just 100% wrong, but I've been saying this for the better part of 3 years now, that the elections seem to be telling a slightly different story than the polls actually do. And we saw this with the election 20. I mean, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, there wasn't a, like, okay, this is going to happen. It kept going with special elections. And we had another one in Ohio. Let's see if I can share this right here. This was a Republican state senator, Michael Ruley was his name. And he ran, so you can share this bad boy over here. All right. So he Republican State Senator Michael Ruley won a special election Tuesday in Eastern Ohio for Senate, state Senate, and sat vacant for months. He defeated Michael Kripchak. All right, he won by about 10 points, which sounds like a solid victory, right? I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, your opponent's not close at all with 10 points.
Pretty good in politics.
Right. Yeah. Nothing. No, you don't come home and say, oh, I only lost the election by 10 points. You got waxed. But check this out. When Trump ran in this district, he won it by 30 points. 30 points. Now, the last Republican that won, I don't see it listed here, but the last Republican that won this seat won it by like 24 points, if I remember correctly. So that is like, from Trump, it's a 20-point drop in support for the Republicans. And for the Republican, it's about a 14-point drop in support. And that seems to be happening a lot. I felt like Dave Rubin here. Something's changing. Something's changing in the air and everything. And I'm seeing this more and more. And I mean, I think that it's primarily the abortion thing that's driving the Democrats going through this. But now, after the whole Trump thing, I've never felt more confident that Trump is going to lose. Like, the more I see Donald Trump, the more I see how the Republicans are reacting to it, the more I see them bragging about the worst stuff imaginable, the more certain I am that average normie Americans are not going to be digging this. Well, what do you think, John?
So I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I don't feel the same way.
Okay.
I definitely am less confident that Trump will lose than I was maybe 6 months ago. Just because I definitely put more faith in the polls than a lot of people. I think at least the aggregate polls, like the ones that 538 does, individual polls that they don't mean anything. But like the aggregate polls tend to be pretty predictive still. But you do have certain areas where they miss, and every election they're different. And we saw this a couple times, especially in Ohio. And unfortunately, I don't think Ohio's close enough to flip blue.
No chance.
I'd probably ever. I think we've lost that
we will die with a red Ohio.
But I do think that it is very indicative that the abortion issue is the thing that is fooling the polls. I think a lot of people are telling pollsters, a lot of Republicans, especially a lot of Republican women, are telling pollsters that they're going to vote for Republicans. They're telling their husbands that they're going to vote for Republicans, and then they are not voting for Republicans. I think, and the other flip side of that is, I saw some analysts talking about why this was so close, and they're like, I mean, honestly, unexpectedly large turnout for the Democrats, unexpectedly low turnout for the Republicans. Yeah, I think that that's exactly what's happening. Abortion is getting Democrats to the polls and causing, closeted pro-choice Republicans to not go and vote, and that's what we're seeing. And I think that I agree with you that the combination of that and hell, we'll talk a little bit about the Trump conviction and everything later in this show. But I think the combination of that and Americans shockingly caring about the 34 felony charges against Trump is going to really seal the deal. As long as Biden can remain upright for the next couple months here, I do think that I still think he wins it. I still think he wins it pretty handily, but I'm not as confident as I once was, TJ. I'll tell you that.
Well, so it's funny you mentioned the 538 thing. So, because I have a thing for that too. So all year, actually, even also last year, I don't think Biden has ever been ahead on the 538 matchup with Trump. It's because they simulate 100 elections based on the data they have. And so in 2016, I didn't know it was this bad. But in 2020, when Trump and Biden ran the first time, the day before the election, they had Biden winning 79 out of 100 showdowns with Trump. I didn't know he was overwhelmingly favored that much. I don't remember it being that strong. But once again, people were still kind of nervous. Like, oh, yeah, you said the same thing about Clinton. But over the last year and a half or so, oh, hello, Heather. Thank you for joining in. We appreciate it very, very much, as always. And but Trump has always had 55 out of 100, 58 out of 100 chances of beating Biden. As of today, actually, here we go. As of, great. It's like I've never worked this platform once in my life. Sorry, folks. You got a rank amateur over here. But as of, not today, but yesterday, as of yesterday, they have Biden projected to win 50 out of 100 times. This is the first time this happened. And the trend has been going, more and more toward Biden ever since Trump's conviction. And what you were talking about with people lying to the pollsters, that's always been a big thing, too. That's the reason people didn't think Obama was going to win. Because something that happened a lot when black candidates ran is that people would say, oh, yeah, I'm going to vote for the black guy, because they didn't want to sound racist to the pollers. And then when the election came up, they changed their mind. And people thought that Obama's was overestimated, but he ended up hitting it. And another one I want to point out, you're talking about Trump's support from the Republicans. Now, one thing John and I talked about yesterday was how surprised we were, like John mentioned, that this conviction and the scandals surrounding Trump are actually hurting him, not just with the populace, but with Republicans. Like, Republicans are growing, viscerally upset with Trump and kind of disgusted by him. And the best way you can see this is with the Nikki Haley vote. Now, I pulled up here. This is when Trump ran in November for the primary, and Trump got 63.3% of the vote. Haley got 34.6% of the vote. In a meaningless primary that everyone knew that Trump was going to win, they got out of bed, went to the primary knowing Trump was going to win anyway, and took time to do a protest vote against him. And Biden won 85%. And so we hear a whole lot on the news about how Biden's being rejected by the Democratic base, and that's not inaccurate, but not nearly enough with Trump, because Trump is being rejected. I didn't think about this. Trump is actually rejected by more Republicans than Biden is by Democrats.
I just had that same thought, TJ. Like that's really impressive.
Yeah. But the news is never about that. The news is all about how Trump is still this strong as a bull moose, and Biden's got this tepid, weak support. Like, no, at worst they're even, but the numbers are showing me that people actually are rejecting Trump more than Biden.
So I wrote a TikTok kind of addressing this point today, and it's more focused on Biden's age, but it kind of plays to the same thing you're talking about here, is that Trump has Biden has farther to fall. Like Trump, we've had this near miss thing with Trump where it's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter whatever Trump says, whatever Trump does, he's going to still have his support. He's Trump. He's got this cult of personality. He's Teflon Don. Hello, Gwen.
Hi, Gwen.
And his age, he says he rambles just as much as Biden. You see his age just as much as you do with Biden. But the problem is that Biden was once a respectable, understandable, coherent speaking man, and Trump never was. And so it's it just feels more significant. As you mentioned, 538 going into 2022 had 79 times out of 100 Biden winning. Now it's 50. And that's a story. That's a change. But it's not really a change that, there's a certain amount of Republicans who don't like Trump. Yeah, we knew that in 2020. That doesn't really change anything. And I guess I am surprised that more coverage isn't being devoted to Nikki Haley, but I think that the media circles the wagons. The Republicans are better able to get the media to circle the wagons than the Democrats are for whatever fucking reason. But I don't know. It is a weird disparity in that coverage. The age coverage I get. This coverage is a little bit more like, hey, why aren't we talking about this with Trump?
Trump has just, I think it's that it's just the fact that Trump does have such a large cult of personality and Biden doesn't have it. And that, you know, you can look at the numbers in front of you, like, what are you going to believe? You know, me or your lying eyes? And you can see the numbers in front of you that Trump actually doesn't have the support that he once did. But you turn on the TV, you go outside, you see the flags, you see the hats, you see the rallies and stuff. It's like, okay, people really do like him, even though it's not nearly as strong. And Trump has cultivated this over, you know, not just over the last 8 years, but his entire life. And what I brought a video I wanted to show you guys that. Do you remember when Trump would do this, John? He would do this thing where he would have his cabinet officials come together.
Most of you know,
oh, shit. Of the people. He had his cabinet officials meet, and then all the cabinet officials would just go around the room kissing his ass. Dude, he did this multiple times during his administration. So I will pull up this right here. This is just how Trump operates.
But I'm going to start with our vice president. Where's our vice president? Our vice president.
Thank you, Mr. President, and just the greatest privilege of my life is to serve as vice president to a president who's keeping his word to the American people and assembling a team that's bringing real change, real prosperity, and real strength back to our nation.
I love watching old clips of Mike Pence during the Trump administration. It's so funny.
You see the pain in his eyes.
It's so great, man. It's so great. And later on, I probably won't bring it up during that segment. We're going to talk about the Southern Baptist Convention. I read something that, you know, Mike Pence got like more of an applause or something line than when they talk about him than with Donald Trump. It's like, it doesn't matter. They're voting for Trump anyway. But Pence is my favorite example of like what the conservative right Christians or conservative Christian right says they want, and they chose Trump over him anyway. And it's like, yeah, you know, that all that bluster, and they went with the guy with 5 kids by 3 different women, other than the actual person who believes what they say. Let me see.
President, I'm privileged to be here, deeply honored, and I want to thank you for keeping your commitment to the American workers.
President, what an incredible honor it is to lead the Department of Health and Human Services at this pivotal time under your leadership. I can't thank you enough for the privilege that you've given me and the leadership that you've shown.
On behalf of the entire senior staff around you, Mr. President.
I want to pause here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but on the bar down there, it says the White House Chief of Staff is Reince Priebus. And there's 2 things about this. First, I didn't remember he was the White House Chief of Staff. I actually don't remember that at all. And second, the joke I always make is that he has a name like a Star Wars character. That doesn't sound like a real person's name.
He does.
Right.
Like it is a Star Wars character.
It is. I want you. Fuck Barack Obama. I want to see Reince Priebus's birth certificate. I don't believe that there's an actual
Priebus.
Mark Free, exactly. Like, what's up with that? Like Newt Gingrich? Yeah, please show me that that's a real person's name. Okay, let's Reince Priebus.
President, we thank you for the opportunity and the blessing that you've given us to serve your agenda and the American people, and we're continuing to work very hard every day to accomplish those goals.
It's been a great honor to work with you. Thank you for your strong support of HUD and for all others around this table that I've worked with. I want to congratulate you on the men and women you placed around this table. The holistic team of Working for America is making results in each and every area. This is a team you've assembled that's working hand in glove for the betterment of America. And I want to thank you for that. These are great team members, and we're on your team.
It was a great honor traveling with you around the country for the last year, and an even greater honor to be here serving in your cabinet.
All right.
Steve Mnuchin has one of the most punchable faces.
Oh God, right.
In my life.
right. And with that guy, all of those people were either fired or resigned. Mm-hmm. That was like this, like every last. Well, I guess Pence wasn't fired, but he wasn't offered the job.
He couldn't be fired. Trust me, Trump wanted to fire him.
He wanted him hung, you know. And so
Trump fired the first 3 guys that told him he couldn't fire Pence.
Yeah, before he finally got the message through and everything. But no, it's what I want to know, John. I want to know what the pre-meeting was like, because I'd love to. I can see it going both ways. I can see it going the way that I assume is that Trump sat down and said, okay, we're having a press conference. We're all introducing ourselves. Although we've been working for a year, like, why are they having introductions? I don't know. But he says, when it gets to you, don't spend too much time on yourself. Kiss my ass. Like, do that for the whole thing. Or did they all just kind of know what kind of guy Trump is? And well,
TJ, it's the latter. Trump doesn't have to say that. Like I don't know if anyone in our audience has ever been around this personality type of a man in power, usually a man who I guess women can be like this too, but it's usually a man in power who just all that matters is loyalty. All that matters is you kiss their ass. It doesn't matter if you're good at your job. It doesn't matter if you know what you're doing. All that matters is you agree with them. And you know when you're working for, like, you see this is the thing where I feel like I recognize this so instantaneously. Like, you see this in movies, you see this stories in history of, like, you can go back to like a Roman emperor and you'll have the same exact thing. And it's so recognizable. It's such a clear pattern. And I genuinely don't understand how people, like, a lot of people have experienced working under a man like that, but they see that clip and they don't immediately recognize the destructive tendencies of a leader who demands that of his underlings. Like, it just, more people must have had asshole bosses like that and realize that they aren't effective. It seems like it should be something that's easily identifiable to, like, the average American, but I guess I'm wrong about that.
So I've never had a boss like that. I've had, like, bosses with major egos, like in the military. That's all people in the military are. They're assholes who want to be in charge. And I've had plenty of staff meetings and everything with high-ranking officials and stuff. Not once have I ever seen people go around as like, oh, sir, you're so incredible, sir. It's embarrassing. Like, watching that. And I can't imagine I'm not saying that these people don't exist. Of course they do. But it's just, I don't know how anyone would take it seriously. I really don't. I don't know how. And you're right. And that wasn't the only one. That was just one of them that I pulled. Trump did this many times throughout his term. And when I watched, I had the same thought as you. Was like, okay, everyone sees that what's going on here. Like, you know, there are Pornhub categories with more dignity than what we just saw right there. You know, just going around. And I don't know how that doesn't just turn you off immediately. Because, like, could you imagine that happening in any other president? I really can't. I really can't imagine that happening in any other White House. Or if it did, I certainly don't think it would be broadcast because of the optics was just so bad.
It definitely happened in, like, LBJ's White House.
Oh, LBJ can see that. Yeah,
there's definitely probably. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened in Teddy Roosevelt's White House. As much as I like Teddy Roosevelt as a president in general, definitely had that kind of leadership style. I don't know. It's definitely a thing that's happened throughout history, but in modern, like, no way fucking that's going on in Obama's White House. No, it's happened in Biden's White House. It doesn't even need to happen in Clinton White House. They genuinely liked Clinton. Everyone probably did that, but they just liked hanging out with Bill. So, like, I don't know. It's just, you're right. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to me that people don't see how embarrassing it is. Because, again, we've all, and even if we haven't been to, like, that scale, we've all had to supplicate because our job depended on it or some other reason. And it just feels like a universal experience that people would recognize as soon as they saw someone else supplicating like that. And I guess, like, people, like, I guess there are a lot of people in this country that think power should be supplicated too.
Yes.
And that's certainly a thing. But maybe that is why, like, we are genuinely seeing this much more emphatic referendum on Trump coming from Republicans, because they are seeing these things. Like, they're seeing that all of his former people are not supporting him anymore. They are seeing the dictator for a day shit. Like, and it is having an effect. And as much as I don't think Democrats are doing enough to highlight this stuff, I do think it is having an impact. And I think that, like, the felony charge is the, like, evidence, the cornerstone that people needed to tie this stuff together into a coherent storyline that told them who Trump was. And that's what's, and I also think on the other side of it, Biden, again, we said this yesterday, isn't that bad for Republicans. Like, he hasn't really done all of that much that Republicans absolutely hate. He hasn't moved the needle on abortion at all. He hasn't really messed with like immigration. He's honestly been he's moved farther right. Like war, he keeps spending on the military. Like he's not doing anything that would just piss off your average Republican voter other than being a Democrat. So again, you have this situation where a lot of people don't want to vote for Trump and not enough people want to vote against Biden. And you have the similar situation on the Democrat side where not enough people want to vote for Biden, but a lot of fucking people are going to line up to vote against Trump, which is why I think it is it's a condemnation of Biden still that it is even this close. But yeah, I think that is what we're going to see play out over the next several months as long as Biden doesn't have a health scare.
Fingers crossed.
It's the scariest thing in the world, TJ.
All right, we'll cut it there. I wanted to add a couple things here, just like ancillary stuff we were talking about. So yeah, like one of the main things about Biden is that I think I heard Charlie Kirk talk about this, I think before 2020 election, where he said that the problem they're running into is that people don't hate Biden the way they hated Obama or Clinton. It's like, so it's hard to really galvanize. Like you see these Republicans out in Trump rallies talking about, crooked sleepy Joe Biden and the Biden crime family. Like, really? Come on. You don't believe that. You're putting on a show, man. There's no way you have this burning, although Joe Biden is the worst president. Come on. And you don't actually buy that. And so that does kind of work out in the Democrats' favor that there's no national wave of hatred. I mean, at worst, they'll think, okay, this guy's just not good at his job, but they're not going to bed, shaking their fists, waiting for Biden to collapse. And the whole sycophancy with Trump, it's revolting. Like it's I saw this image. What is this even from? It's like Trump he's with a bunch of senators here. I saw this and I saw some Republicans even shitting on this. Look at this image, man. Just look at this. Like all these grown ass adults just hovering around Donald Trump and clapping for him while he's got this goofy ass look on his face and everything. And it's like, how can you see that and just not be revolted? I mean, how can you just like not look at that stupid face? And this guy here, like Wesley, he's like, he looks like he's kind of upset, but everybody else has these stupid grins, and Trump looks like a 10-year-old child right there.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just agreeing. I was just looking at the way he's like how he always looks like he's about to fall forward.
He does, like that. Yeah, I don't know, but I am pleasantly surprised to see the amount of Republicans who are, at least as it stands, turning against them, and it's I don't know, fun to watch.
Yeah, well, that can segue us nicely into our next topic of the Hunter Biden crime family, TJ, that you just brought up. And I'm going to be honest, if there's any conservatives who came to this episode to learn the scandalous details of the Hunter Biden trial, I didn't spend too much time looking into them. This is not going to be a discussion too much about Hunter Biden or the details of the case. But what I did want to talk about with this is the general Republican reaction, which is what you just alluded to in our in-between conversation, the episodes here, which, by the way, if you guys are watching this as a video, we do this live every Thursday. So if you want to see that in between the videos chit chat, definitely join us live at 6:30 Eastern. But Hunter Biden, he was convicted. It was a gun thing, which is, I think, the funniest possible thing for Republicans to have to try and rally the troops behind. Is like, oh, we gotta get Hunter Biden for having guns when he shouldn't have, and we gotta enforce those gun control laws, people. That is how twisted this whole thing has become. Because if you watched our previous episode on, we covered the Ohio elections and how Trump is building this cult of personality. We talked about how nothing really matters to Trump except for loyalty, and this entire Hunter Biden trial is the result of that. And am I saying that Hunter Biden shouldn't go to jail if he committed a crime? No. Fuck yeah, he should be. But the reason that this has become a big thing is because the Republicans wanted to supplicate themselves to Donald Trump. They wanted to go tit for tat with the Democrats and get them on something. And I think what we have seen is that it doesn't matter. This isn't going to move the polls in the way that Trump's conviction did, because no one actually cares about it, including the Republicans, right, TJ?
Yeah, the Republicans have spent 5 years now, 5 years, 2019 till now, constantly complaining about Hunter Biden. Just every opportunity they got, they were talking about this guy. They were showing us pictures of his junk. They were, talking about his past, which, look, if it was just, oh, wow, this Hunter Biden guy is a grade A F up, and they were just making fun of him. All right, sure. And Hunter Biden is kind of a tragic tale too, because, the whole story with Joe Biden is just like a series of tragedies, going back to, the 70s or something when this happened, when his wife and daughter died in a car accident while he was senator. During the Nixon administration, I might add. Like that's how fucking old Joe Biden is. And his wife and daughter died in a car accident, and his two boys survive. His oldest son, Beau, is the golden child. Like his oldest son, Beau, was the one who was supposed to carry the mantle of the Biden family. He joins the military. He deploys to Afghanistan or Iraq. I can't remember which one. And for those of you who know about this, we had the burn pits over there in the Middle East and everything. Got a lot of folks sick. A lot of folk had cancer. And that's almost certainly how Beau Biden got his cancer. And he was the son that was on the straight and narrow. Everything was good to go. Hunter, no one gave up. He was like, okay, yeah, this guy, yeah, I can do whatever I want. I come from the rich family, big brother Beau's carrying the family line. I'm just going to have fun. And then Beau dies at like 41 years old or something like that. Now he's the only surviving son, and all the attention's on him, and he spirals more out of control. And so, he loses himself to an even more hedonistic lifestyle. And his dad runs for president, and now his entire life story about his bouncing around from location to location and country to country, never settling down and doing drugs, is just exposed to the whole world. And people think this is what's going to tank Joe Biden. This story right here, the fact that his son hasn't amounted to anything and is a petty criminal, and Joe Biden, like I just saw you're talking about the Biden's reaction to this, and something we talked about yesterday was how this actually makes Biden look more personable. Whenever you hear him talk about his family and his son in particular, it's always the same thing. It's like, listen, Hunter's made a lot of mistakes in his life, but he's my son, and Jill and I love him, and he always has our support. And Republicans like, oh, look how weak that is. Like, folks, you look awful saying shit like that. And Fox News has been talking this whole time, the conspiracies of this, because when the Hunter Biden case first started, they all said that this is just a show trial. And Joe and Jill Biden, or Jill Biden, showed up at one of the hearings, and they said she was trying to intimidate the jurors to get him an acquittal. And then when he was found guilty, they said, well, this isn't good enough, and Biden's going to pardon him anyway. And just today, I saw Biden give a speech saying that, I said that if my son was found guilty, I wasn't going to pardon him. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, stick with the decision by the courts. And I saw a bunch of Fox News people say, oh, he's lying. He's going to pardon him. It's like, folks, I don't know why they continue to make themselves look bad in this case. They insist upon it.
It is funny because I don't like Joe Biden. I see Joe Biden. Yeah. I don't like him. Every once in a while, he does something. I'm like, that's a pretty cool thing. But the times that my appreciation for Joe Biden are at their absolute highest is when he's talking about his kids. And when a clip comes out of him, as you mentioned, calling his son Hunter and being like, hey kid, I love you. I know you need help. Let's talk about it. Like, it's so genuine. And that's the thing.
Yes, good point.
That's the thing that made people like Trump originally is that when Trump talked, you believed it was genuinely Donald Trump talking. And when Joe Biden gets up at his press conference, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like he's placating. It sounds like he has talking points. It sounds all that. But every time something comes out about his family, about whatever, the original thing that made me like Joe Biden, I remember it was after, I don't know if it was leading up to no, he was vice president. When he was vice president, and they were talking like, hey, are you going to run for president, once Obama's second term is done? And it was like on Colbert or something. And he was like, honestly, I need to spend time with my family, time with my kids. When my son Bo died, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow, I respect this man. Like, I kind of like this guy. Like, he seems like a genuinely good person and family man. And like, that means something. Mm-hmm. Every time he gets up on the podium and talks about Israel, I want to punch him in the face. But when he does that, I'm like, this is a real person. And it makes me want to support him more. And I don't understand why the Republicans don't, like, the Family Values Party should probably notice that. You know what I mean? They should probably notice that these things make Biden look good. But again, it's just the tit for tat. They want to do something for Trump. Trump wants him to go after him. Go and do it. Doesn't matter if it makes Biden look good. It's what we got to do because it's what Trump wants to do.
It's when we talk about Republicans a lot with this thing is that all the Republicans have left. So we mock conservative ideology all the time because it doesn't make any sense, and it's essentially just the screeds of robber barons and CEOs and executives just trying to drain as much money out of regular people as they can. And so for a long time now they realize that, well, we can't make that our primary message. We have to go on culture war stuff. So it used to be easy for them. It used to be really easy. They'd be like, oh, black folk, that's who we're going after. Like, we need to target them. They're the ones who are stealing your jobs. They're the ones who are ruining your community. And then they shifted to women. Okay, well, women they're getting a little mouthy and they're trying to, take the place of men. And, misandry is a really big thing they have to worry about. Then they went to, the queer community. They've gone to Muslims. They've gone to Hispanic immigrants. They've gone to trans people now. And they're kind of running out of people to demonize because, it just doesn't hit quite as. That's why they're getting so much more acerbic with this message here, where they used to be able to say stuff like, well, we love the black community. It's just a shame that their fathers don't take care of the kids. If they solve that problem, be okay. And now you have, Nick Fuentes out there. And now you have just straight up Nazis and fascists who are just openly proclaiming that they're racist. So it just doesn't hit as hard anymore. And when that's the only tool you have in your tool belt, you're going to use it and just make yourself look really bad. Because I promise you, if we were just listening to like two MAGA conservatives talking amongst themselves and they didn't know they were being observed or anything, they would probably say something along the lines of, yeah, we really need to go after this Hunter Biden guy. We really need to embarrass him more. And we really need to clown on Joe Biden for being soft against this guy. And to them, like in their minds, like, oh yeah, this works. This is what's going to get the people on our side. And it ain't. I'm sorry, it ain't. Like nobody is going to go out and vote for Trump because of this Hunter Biden stuff. And they seem convinced of it. And I'm not exactly sure. I really don't get it because they're not stupid. They have to realize that, like you said, John, like, unfortunately, people vote on vibes way too often. And someone who's like not political and they don't understand this stuff at all, they see how Trump treats everyone and they see how his family included. And then they see how Biden talks about his son in a difficult spot. That's gonna move some hearts. It is. Maybe you shouldn't base your vote on president on that. I'm not saying that, but it definitely does say something about your character that, is going to endear to a lot of people.
It will. And that's what the only thing Biden has is being a better person than Trump. And the only thing Trump has is not being Biden. And like it's, they're playing to their base. They're preaching to the choir. And the problem is the base hasn't grown. Like the MAGA base for Donald Trump has been from 2016 to 2024 exactly the same. And yes, it is large enough that it can control Republican primaries. Absolutely control them. I think I read when we were talking about when I was reading about the Ohio thing, that he's undefeated or nearly undefeated so far in primary endorsements. Now, that's not necessarily surprising. Oftentimes a president or like the head of the, former president, whatever, like they tend to be very effective as endorsements for primaries at different states, but he's batting almost 1,000. And it shows the power that he has among Republicans in the primaries. But as you see, even there, like he's beating Nikki Haley by 20 points, which is not that much for a presumptive nominee. So, like, it's beginning to wear. It's beginning to wear on the rest of the party that isn't the MAGA base, and they have failed to grow the base, but they can only preach to the base because that's all Trump cares about. So everyone in the Republican GOP stratosphere has to placate to Trump, or else they will lose their primaries. But it causes them to lose in the general, because that's not really what the majority of America wants. So yeah, it puts the GOP in a very tough spot. They have to give him control of all of the finances. Like it's really, and we've talked about this a million times. Everything Trump has done has been very destructive for the GOP. If he doesn't win in 2024 in November, it's probably a good thing that he happened in the grand scheme of things. But
yeah, oddly enough, it's true. We've joked about it before that back when Trump ran the first time, people like Republicans would say, "Oh, this guy's just a Democratic psyop to destroy the Republican Party," and it's turning out to be the case. Maybe not.
I thought he was, TJ, when he started running it, like in 2015. I was like, "Fuck, is he secretly a Democrat? Like, yeah, is he doing this intentionally?" And it does suck that he got those justices on the Supreme Court, which is going to hurt us for a long time. But it probably is going to be better than not. As long as he doesn't win this election, it's probably going to be better that he happened than that he didn't. But I could be wrong.
I agree. I agree.
Ben, get the fuck out of here.
Here comes Ben. I think you'd be happy to hear there are 7 more people just like you watching this right now. So how dare you, sir?
Watching this, tell Ben to shut
we are almost at double digits. So, but the whole thing with Trump and losing it, I wish I could remember who it was, but I saw some Republican talking about this like the day before yesterday, and he was saying that how the Republican Party is a cult now, that and he brought up the same thing you did, that they've lost control of their own primaries, which is the only reason they're still supplicating debasing themselves towards Donald Trump, because it isn't, like you said, he's got like a nearly perfect record for endorsing people in primaries, that it is nearly impossible to get out of a Republican primary without Trump support. And even if you could get through, the last thing that you want to do as a Republican is piss off Trump supporters, because look, they may not be 50% of the party, but they're probably like 35% easily. I mean, easily.
They're far more likely to show up. Is the other part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's led to some weird shit, because everyone knows that the right thing to do, the right thing as far as you can do as a Republican, is to be Liz Cheney. Right, is to do what she did. Say, okay, listen, I know we're conservatives here, but this guy isn't even a conservative, which is true. He's not. He doesn't have any ideological principles for it. And say the election was obviously not stolen. Like you guys have been at this for 4 years now. If there was any evidence of it, a court would have found it, and an audit would have found it, and there's none there. So let's just stop saying this nonsense. But if you are Liz Cheney, your honesty and nobility is rewarded by losing your job, and none of them want to lose their jobs. So they keep, you keep bowing down to Trump, even though it's nonsense. And it puts in the weird situation. Like we talked with Nikki Haley, like we were wondering what she would do. Even she came out and endorsed Trump, and she didn't want to do that. Like damn well she didn't want to do that. But if she wants a career in the future, I think it's a pretty big gamble. I'm not sure where you fell on that, because I think you were saying that she wants to set herself up as the anti-Trump when Trump is done. Mm-hmm. But coming out and endorsing him now seems to put that in jeopardy. But I guess that's the safe bet she played.
That doesn't matter. I don't think that matters in 15 years. Everyone will have endorsed Trump. Like, of course, you're going to endorse the president that is going against Biden. Like it probably doesn't play well if she doesn't end up endorsing him in the long run. But yeah, no, I think she's played this brilliantly. Her stock is way up. Like she is going to be a major Republican influence in the next 2 decades here.
So I don't disagree with you. I think that if you're playing your cards, safe, endorsing Trump, like, oh, what's the harm it could do? Because you're right. In years, who's going to remember? Unless you get Barack Obama. And so like Hillary Clinton supported the Iraq war, and Obama, a much younger guy, came along who never had to like make a statement on it. And he used that as an attack against Clinton. Well, listen, only one of us here supported the Iraq war. So 10 years from now, some 45-year-old Republican would be like, well, you supported Donald Trump, did you not? And I think that, I mean, look, that's not likely. I'll admit it. Like that's kind of a, I mean, when's another Barack Obama coming along where you have another 49-year-old guy running for president or something?
Especially as a Republican. I guess the Republicans are kind of getting more okay with younger, but they tend to like their old guys.
But it's just like, but you're right. Like that would be the safe bet, but it could bite her. But she had to do one or the other. And it was funny because do you remember when Ted Cruz tried doing this when he ran? So when Cruz lost to Trump in the primary, there was a lot of bad blood going on because Donald Trump called Ted Cruz's wife ugly. He put out news stories to the National Enquirer that Ted Cruz's dad had killed JFK or was involved in the JFK assassination. I mean, just like the worst stuff imaginable. So Ted Cruz hated Donald Trump. And so Ted Cruz was speaking at the Republican National Convention, and his speech is coming to an end. And everyone was wondering, is he going to support Trump? Is he going to endorse Trump? And Ted Cruz steps out there and says, okay. And in November, vote your conscience, vote for us. And he was just showered with boos, just a cascade of boos because he wouldn't actually support Trump. And then like a week later, he ended up actually endorsing Trump. It's like, man, you gotta pick a decision here. You can't do half of that shit right there. And Ted Cruz has been one of the most open and loud Trump supporters since then. He's definitely made his bed.
Yeah, that boot is well and truly shined by Ted Cruz.
Oh, yeah.
He's deep-throated that boot all the way through. He was in that picture. He was right there, Sam, right there in that picture that you showed earlier, where it's just
you're right.
Right there. It is really sad. I would say I feel bad, but it's Ted Cruz, so I don't.
Let's see, Ben has a couple more comments here. One day, I hope you guys' live stream platform gets boosted, to be honest. Oh, we know what's going to happen, man. Nothing gets handed to you easy in life. We don't want it. We want to earn it.
No, actually, YouTube, if you're listening, I don't want to earn this shit. Just shower us with viewers. I'm done earning shit. I'm 27 years old. I'm too old for this. Just give it to me.
John, have you ever seen Gangs of New York?
Yes, but a long time ago.
So in Gangs of New York, for those of you who aren't aware of the film, it's a story about New York gangs in the 1860s or late 1850s, one of the two. And Daniel Day-Lewis plays a gang leader called Bill the Butcher. And I've always said that if Donald Trump was cool, he would be Bill the Butcher. Like this flamboyant bigot who like tells jokes and gets like a demagogue. And I love Bill the Butcher. He's such a great character. But he has a rival in another gang who's played with Liam Neeson named Priest Vallon. And they get into a fight in the beginning of the movie, and Bill the Butcher kills Priest Vallon. And Priest Vallon's son grows up and joins Bill the Butcher's gang. But Bill the Butcher doesn't know he's his rival's son. And so his son joins the gang with the intention of, eventually I'm going to avenge my dad's death. And about halfway through the film, he pulls a knife out or throws it at Bill the Butcher. Bill the Butcher deflects it and gets him. Oh, no, he pulls out a gun and Butcher throws a knife at him. And so he's in front of this crowd and he's yelling and everything about what should he do? And he's like, what should I cut from him? Lamb or chop or like loin or chop, side or shank. And people are saying, cut out his liver, cut out his tongue, cut out his heart. It's like, his heart? The boy has no heart. And he says, so kill him. And Bill Butcher says, he ain't earned it. He ain't earned a death by Bill the Butcher. I love that line. I love it so much because there is something to it. It's like, yeah, earning it is important. Like earning it does actually make you feel good. Like, even if it's a murder, it's like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. And we got a majority of the party has to be Trump support. Okay. Oh, sorry, I should read that. John tells you a majority of the party has to be Trump supporters, is what Ben said. So
I told DJ he's got to read the whole quote for the people who aren't watching.
All right. So a majority of the party will vote for Trump. Yes, they will. But I'm talking about when I say that the Trump base is maybe 35% of the party
actually like support Trump. Like I'll probably end up voting for Biden, but I definitely don't fucking support him. You know what I mean? Like the majority of Republicans support Donald Trump.
Yeah, think of it as like the resistance libs on our side, like the people who like have the posters of Kamala Harris on their wall and shit. That's what we mean. Like people who are just ride or die for Trump no matter what. They would like have to take off work if Trump died because they'd be so heartbroken, stuff like that. And Ben says they're gonna have someone way worse in 15 years. Maybe. What do you think about this, John? We've had a conversation about this before. Is that where the Republican Party goes after Trump? Like one way or the other, this is it for Trump. Like this is his last hurrah right here. What happens afterward?
Yeah, I don't know, TJ. I think it depends on a couple things. I think it depends if Trump is alive in 2028, because he'll run again. And that will affect things. I don't think he'll win. I think it'll be a very contested primary, but you'll end up doing that. If he isn't alive or isn't running because he's just too old or what have you.
He's too old. He's 83.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but that, you know.
Sure.
I'm not, as long as he's capable of running, he's going to run. He can't, if he wins, he can't run again, and he's still going to do it. So I don't think the age will stop him either. But where does it go? I do think you end up with, if he loses, and it depends how badly he loses. If he gets his shit kicked in, I think that, and we get a trifecta again for the Democrats, I think you end up having a counter movement against Trump, and you end up with a Nikki Haley. If it's close, I don't know, TJ. I think it becomes a battle. I think the GOP battles it out, and I don't know who wins.
I have a morbid fascination with seeing what happens with this. I think Trump's going to lose. I've been saying this for a long time, but I want to see the political organization, Republican Party after, because I don't know. I genuinely don't know what happens. But I wanted to time out right here. We officially hit double digits for the first time. We had 10 viewers the first time.
There we go. There you suck it, Ben.
Yeah, suck it, Ben. Ben, you can go. Ben's going to drop out right now to drop out. But yeah, it's I don't know where they're going to go with this. I don't know. What I would like to see, just for funsies, is bringing it back to like our primary topic here, is I want a Don Jr. versus Hunter presidential election. Like let's just go. Let's fucking go, man. So what?
Run it back again.
Let's go, right? I mean, look, we're all having a blast here, right? It's going to be even more. And that is one election that I'm even more positive that Biden would win. Like, you ever like listen to Hunter Biden like talk and everything like that? He actually sounds like a coherent person, unlike Donald Trump Jr., who's just all over the place. So yeah, I would. So I don't know either. I don't know where they're going to go. I can see it going. I think it's more likely, honestly, and this is like playing with fire here with the prediction. I think it's more likely to go the Nikki Haley route just because of the populace of the nation. Like the nation is not becoming more like the MAGA crowd. It's becoming more sensible and more reasonable, more educated. And like as like states like Texas are becoming like creeping more and more blue. Texas isn't going blue this election or next election, but hey, 3-4 elections from now, it might. And if that happens, the Republican Party, as we know it, is done. It's over. They have to change into something else if they want any power at all. So I think John's prediction from earlier of a more, Nikki Haley style Republican Party, it seems more likely to me. I mean, who knows? Like if they get their fascism stuff, they don't have to worry about that. But, assuming that we live in, a stable timeline, I don't see it going any other way, honestly.
Yeah, we'll see.
I will break the segment there. Probably it's a good way to stop that. We got a doggy back there.
Yeah, there's someone outside our front door, and she's like, "We have to check on this. There could be an intruder." And what are you doing? Why are you just sitting there?
Does your dog have different barks for like? We had a dog, and she had a bark for people. She had a bark for cars. She had a bark for bikes. And a bark for small animals. And I can always tell what was outside based on how her bark sounded. Like, so she.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no, I can do the same thing.
It's like,
there's a cat. Right. Like our neighbor will put food out for like a outside cat out there, and like every time she knows where it is, and every time at night I take her out, she looks immediately to where the cat would be. Like, where is that fucker?
So our dog Her name was Oreo. She was like a blue tick beagle and white with like a bunch of black spots and everything. And she's a medium-sized dog, fast as hell. To this day, the fastest dog I've ever seen. Which is saying something because dogs are lightning fast. But this dog would just sprint around our 1 acre yard all the time. But next door was this guy who I'm positive was a drug dealer. Like positive this guy was a drug dealer, but just based on what we saw. But he had a dog. And you ever see dogs that are like stacked? Like the dog has pecs. The dog is just like lumbering around like this. He had this massive dog and named Rosie. And Oreo would run up to the gate and just start shit talking Rosie. And they would chase each other up and down the fence. And, but every now and then Rosie would get out of the cage. And when Rosie got out of the cage, she would look for Oreo. She was just looking around. She was just trying to find her. And Oreo would always run inside. But Rosie, it was just so funny because Rosie would just be standing defiantly, just looking around our yard, trying to find Oreo. Oreo didn't want the smoke whenever Rosie was out of the cage. I love it.
So funny.
It was so funny, man. It happened every time. All right. Who should I vote for, Unks? John, how do you feel about being called Unk? Are you ready for that? I mean, you're not 30 yet. That's usually
TJ. I am a white man. I've never been called Unk. I will never be called Unk. That is not.
Okay.
It's not a part of my culture.
Fair enough.
But
fair enough.
Cool. I'm cool. Hey, but I honestly, my family doesn't even like use like we just Chris, Tim. Like we don't do like that thing.
You know what? I remember being so shocked by that. I remember like I would go to my friend's house, my white friends and everything. And it's like, hey, what's up, Tim? I was like, isn't that your uncle? It's like, oh yeah. It's like, you don't call him Uncle Tim? It's like, no, it's just Tim. Like, oh, that's weird. That's very weird. Like, I don't know.
Like when I was like a little kid, yeah, like Uncle Timmy or whatever, but I don't know. Maybe when I was in my teenage years, it just was weird to like call. I don't know. It's just. And that's not like all white people. I know plenty.
No, it's not. But I've only seen it in white families. I've never seen it in a black family.
There is definitely more, like just from what I've noticed, like my friends who are in minority groups, like there's way more like hierarchical family structure in minority, or at least in my anecdotal experience, minority families than there are in white families. Like in white families, you might have like the grandfather or grandmother who's in charge, and then everyone else is kind of just filtered down, where I feel like there's much more hierarchical structure in a lot of minority communities.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this is something that black people we talk about all the time, and it is something I've seen a lot. I hate like playing into stereotypes and shit, but you ever see just like a child yelling at their parents? like a 9-year-old kid is just cussing out their mom and dad. We're like, what the fuck is going on with white families, man?
Yeah, that's only what. I've never seen one time I've seen a black kid do that, but no, it's usually a white kid.
I've never seen that, man, and I just it's and with the uncle thing, I can get that too. I mean, I understand. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing it, and I don't even like my uncles. It's like I don't even like them, But
well, I know, like my black friends, like they confuse me because they call people Unk who aren't their uncle. Like,
okay,
like,
yeah,
he's just a dude that's friends with the family. I'm like, and you call him Unk? And it's like, yeah, that's what you just call an older man. It's just
yeah. I mean, it's like calling someone bro. That's not really your brother.
Yeah.
But I can kind of see the dropping the uncle thing as like a rite of passage into adolescence or adulthood or whatever. Kind of like if you went by Mikey, you're just Mike now. Like, okay, that was my child name. Now you're dropping that. So I can see it. I don't think
we didn't even even my friends' parents. I call them by first. Not all of them. But like some of them, like the close friends, easily. My neighborhood, it's all first names. It wasn't.
Oh, Mr. that's so weird. That's so weird, man. That's so strange. All right, I'm drawing the line there. No, like my friend's dad is Mr. Lewis. I'm not calling him Neil. I'm not gonna walk in and just say, "What's up, Neil?" As a 13-year-old.
I hate in the South they do this all the time. Where it's just like, yeah, if you're talking to an adult, you say yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and I'm just like, why? That's the dumb. I hate that. I think it teaches very bad things to people to like be like, yeah, no, they're older than you. You say yes, sir. It's like, no, fuck you. Like that, you have to earn that respect.
You know what, John? I've never disagreed with you more.
Really? No,
wow. Because so I was raised to do that. Well, so it's funny. we didn't do it at first. When I was really little, we didn't do that. But what happened was my parents signed me and my brother up for martial arts classes. And we were taking martial arts. And while you're in the dojo, you refer to the sensei. We said, yes, ma'am.
Mhm,
my parents really like that. They're like, like, so from like, 9 years old on, they said, all right, so whenever we tell you something, it's yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. And I did that my entire life. I still do, actually. And I remember I'm a big fan. A big fan of like structure and discipline. Like I am. And it doesn't have to look the same way.
Doctor, the military man is
I know, right? Shocking, right? Yeah. And so, but I just hear, let's go back to that. So my parents raised 3 children, and all 3 of us grew up to be, stable, successful, relatively, mentally competent, and 3 for 3, which is a hell of a batting average. I compare that to like any other family. Like most of
compare
them,
that to the Bidens.
Compare that to the Bidens, exactly. My dad wasn't a senator, and he found a way to raise kids that didn't end up, complete embarrassments. And so, especially with the rest of my family, it's like, okay, so look, my parents were incredibly strict in a lot of ways, and ways now that, I see as, even they see it as, problematic, but can't argue with the results. Cannot argue with the results. And so the yes, ma'am, yes, sir thing, I did that to all adults, as a kid. And it's not necessary, but if you want to like have a structure in there, if you want to like be rude and condescending, saying yes, sir, you really got to lay it on. Yes, sir. I mean, you really got to like make it very obvious that you're trying to be rude, but it's not necessary. But yeah, I didn't mind it. Basically, Hitler versus Stalin. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, it's not great.
Yeah, clearly I'm going to vote for Stalin over Hitler.
Well, I think he's saying Biden versus Trump.
That's what he's saying, Biden versus Trump. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Like
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I guess clearly I'm going to vote for Biden over Trump. So yeah, that maybe it checks out a little bit.
And so like full Trumper, I think that's been asking about the 35% we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If Trump loses, they'll do January 6th. No, they won't. Well, I mean, they may want to, but Trump was in office at the time.
Yeah, like Biden ain't gonna let that fly.
No.
Everyone's gonna be on alert.
Yes, yeah, there will be plenty of resources to stop it. Like Trump was in power and still couldn't make it happen. Being out of power, it's not gonna have a better result. Hunter versus Trump Jr. would be great. I mean, we're not gonna get it. We don't deserve something that great. And they'll probably at least try to do fascism. Well, I mean, yeah. I don't eat Oreos anymore, so don't have to worry about me eating Oreo dog. Why would I think you would eat my dog, Ben? Where did that come from? That was weird. That was odd.
But Ben, you're making me think that you might eat dog.
Yeah, no one brought that up, bro. No one brought that up at all. It's I'm an uncle, though. I wouldn't want to be called an uncle. Oh, that's weird when you're a kid and you're an uncle.
Yeah,
that's
that is
odd.
a weird thing. Yeah.
I never had that happen. Like my siblings are both younger than me, but I did have an uncle who was like 13 years older than me, which is very strange. We were that close in age, and so yeah.
Yeah, my girlfriend in high school was an aunt, and that's the weirdest thing.
That's some weird shit. Ben says, I was making a joke about eating the Oreo. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was making a joke about eating the dog because it was named Oreo. We got that, Ben.
Yeah, no, we got what the joke was.
We got that part. We got that part. We weren't confused at the premise of the joke, but just making the joke is what we were talking about. Oh, okay. Let's move on here. We've had enough fun. Okay, so John. Yeah, we'll go with this one. This is the darker one. All right. What is going on with the ceasefire thing? What I really don't know, because every news story I saw about this, every article I saw talking about it, just made me more confused. And so I saw something today. I think it was a post from 2 hours ago from AP or something like that. And the ceasefire was presented to Hamas. And Hamas said they agreed with the overall framework of the ceasefire, which it was like a 3-step process in which there's a a secession, a ceasefire, and then they would exchange hostages, prisoners of war. They would exchange hostages on both sides. They would work out a deal to finalize no more aggression on Israel's part. And there was one other element in there I can't remember. I guess removing the Israeli presence from Gaza and setting us. But Hamas wanted like some more detail on some other thing, and so they said they didn't reject it, but they added amendments to it. And is that the last thing you saw? What's going on here?
That is also the last thing I saw. The thing that has been so confusing about this, and there's a fog of war. You never know exactly what happens in war, but this isn't war. This is diplomatic negotiations, and it feels like to me that so. There's clearly the people controlling the release of information here is the U.S. Western media, everyone. And to me, when the people controlling the narrative aren't giving as much information as possible about the narrative, I don't trust the narrative that they're giving. And that's the case here, where if it's true that Hamas is holding this up, why don't you just release the details? Like there has been no release of what the details are being negotiated. There's no indication of what the holdup is, just that Hamas is holding it up. And Hamas has said it's accepted the deal. Like I've heard from sources, like there have been sources reporting that Hamas has accepted the deal and Israel's holding it up. And I genuinely don't know which one to believe, but there is a lot of smoke around this. Like as I said, I thought this would be over already. I was wrong about that. But Biden clearly wants this to end very soon. The UN Security Council is coming together and saying, hey, Hamas, accept this. But we don't know what this is. We don't know what the details are that aren't being accepted on either side. And it's very unclear and it's very frustrating because I do feel like people deserve to know more than this about what is going on here, because it does feel like this will be the last deal thing being negotiated. And it's very weird that we don't know what the details are. But yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time trying to look for this, TJ, and I really don't know what the hang up is.
It's very obnoxious, right? That the details seem so sparse on this
because we know that Hamas has offered to return all hostages since October 9th. This is like Israel could have had a ceasefire any moment, and so I'm always going to blame Israel for this. But I do believe that Hamas is holding something up here somehow, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what the end game here is, because it does seem like Israel's positioning itself to stop. But I don't know why they would continue then. It's confusing.
All right, I'm going to pull up what we both probably read here. So us is talking about Biden strikes a pessimistic note on Israel-Hamas ceasefire. That's always something you want to read. That's always something you want to see. Joe Biden on Thursday expressed doubts that a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas would soon come together, telling reporters that Hamas needs to move. No, Biden responded when asked if he was confident that a peace deal was imminent, but he added, I haven't lost hope. The brief exchange followed a skydiving demonstration during the G7 summit. That's a weird thing to add in. Who gives a shit about that?
It is a very weird thing. Unless Biden was skydiving, that I would pay to see Biden skydive.
Honestly, that's where my brain first was. Okay, no way, he wasn't. It's like, then why did they bring this up?
He just said this and jumped out of a plane. Tom fucking Cruise.
I don't know. I understand that with writing, you want to make your work breathe or something, but I don't need to see stuff like that written in here. After a delicious veal parmesan, Biden came and said this. Who cares, man? All right. Biden expanded on his concerns, saying the biggest hangup is on Hamas's side. Of course, he would say that. Whether or not it comes to fruition remains to be seen. He said at a press conference alongside Ukrainian President Zelensky, "We're going to continue to push. I don't have a final answer for you." It came days after Hamas responded to an Israeli ceasefire proposal with a counteroffer of its own. The White House is still evaluating that offer, officials said, though they cautioned that it differs significantly from aspects of Israel's three-stage plan. Biden confirmed that he had discussed those Middle East negotiations with G7 leaders during the summit, though did not offer details on those. Okay, listen, if you're planning a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, shouldn't the negotiations happen between Hamas and Israel? Like why do you? I don't know. That's just odd to me.
I mean, it's like, I mean, that's a classic, like, it's basically when in high school you'd be like, yo, does your friend like me? Like, it's like that, but for genocide. Like they can't say it directly. That'd be too awkward. It has to go through intermediate channels.
The U.S. has pitched Israel's ceasefire plan as a reasonable pathway towards permanently ending the war, arguing it would immediately halt the fighting in Gaza and create a process for returning the hostages still held by Hamas. Some of those amendments are modest and minor, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said earlier Thursday. Others are not consistent with what President Biden laid out. Sullivan added that the administration is still trying to find a path to a ceasefire agreement, but could not provide any timetable. Biden confirmed that he had discussed those Middle East negotiations with the G7 leaders during the summit. But once again, like you said, John, exactly what you said. Whole lot of nothing said there. Whole lot of nothing said there. It's like it might as well not even exist. So why are we making this news on this? And with the shifting, like you said, the shifting of blame is, oh, well, this is Hamas's fault. If only Hamas would be reasonable and accept this ceasefire. It's like, listen, you offered a proposal and they offered one. That you're even. I mean, like, you could accept their proposal and end the war too, right? I mean, nothing's stopping you from doing that, but you're like, oh, well, I guess Hamas just doesn't want peace. But I'm not privy to the conversations held among the top leadership of Hamas on whether or not they want peace. But yeah, I know who doesn't want peace, and that is Benjamin Netanyahu, who has the least incentive to end this war of anybody, because his political career could end the day this war is over. And I don't know if you saw, but Benny Gantz, I think he's like the defense minister in Israel. He announced his resignation. Did you see that?
Oh, no, I didn't. I missed that.
Well, so he announced that he was going to resign, and then the next day, we didn't even mention the what started this whole thing.
Rescue?
Yeah, we didn't mention that. Yeah.
We'll get
and so
to
the
it.
next. Oh, go ahead.
No. Continue. We'll get to that.
So the next day, or maybe a couple days later, after Gantz said that he was set to resign, the Israeli military went in to rescue a group of hostages, and they killed 200 people while doing it. And I haven't read a lot of details on that. Cause like, how did that happen? Like, how did they kill 200 people? And they pulled 4 hostages out of there. And after that happened, Gantz postponed his retirement or his resignation. I'm not sure all the details on that, but he's still around right now. And I've heard, like, this is conspiracy theory stuff here, that like Israel is just prolonging this because it's like, that's just incredible that you knew where those hostages were right away and then went in and yanked them out the second that your defense minister was announcing his resignation. And this might just prolong your political capital a little bit more. But yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Israel has no incentive to stop this unless U.S. says, you have to stop this or we stop supporting you. Like, that's the only reason that they would ever stop doing this. Because what's everyone going to do about it if they don't? If the U.S. is still supporting them, no one's going to attack them. And if that doesn't happen, they're not going to change what they're doing. And I genuinely think this is speculation. This is not based off of, it is based off reporting that I've seen, but like, this is just pure reading the tea leaves. I think that Biden's speech where he was like, there's a ceasefire deal. I don't think there was one, DJ. I think that was Biden basically bluffing. Like going, okay, you guys haven't been listening to me. I've been saying you got to knock it the fuck off. I'm going to make a public statement now saying there's a deal in place and you're going to have to deal with this. And I think that's what happened there. And if I were to take a really serious guess, and this is a guess, I would say that it isn't Hamas holding things up. It is definitely Israel holding things up. And Biden is saying that it's Hamas holding things up to buy time. And that's why there's no details about what is being held up, because there isn't. Like, if you've ever worked in a job where like you're in a client facing role and you know that your team doesn't have the thing that your client wants, and you have to kind of stall for like a day and just like kind of lead them on a wild goose chase until like you get your shit together on your team, you know what's going, like, this is exactly how this goes down, where you say, oh yeah, no, there's these problems, you know, and we're dealing with them with the technology, you know, and I don't really know what the problems are exactly, but my team's telling me there's problems, and let me just get back to you tomorrow. Like that's what is happening here, I think, and it's because Israel won't stop. And now they're in this, okay, we lied to everyone, and now we have to keep lying game until someone stops lying. That's the Occam's razor explanation to all of this, and it's what I'll believe until any details come out regarding what is actually holding up these negotiations.
Yeah, I'm inclined to have a similar opinion here. Now, it is possible. It is, because here's the thing, is that we've had so many ceasefire deals on the table, and every time there's one on the table, we know who wrote it, we know who it came from, we know what the details are, which is why the one we were. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just agreeing. Like I've also been thinking that like every other ceasefire deal has been way more detailed than this one.
And now, like, the only thing that we have to go on is the last one that was offered, which was like the 3-step plan, which started off with like what Kamala Harris referred to with the 6-week ceasefire, and that's a temporary one, and then exchange hostages, remove Israel from Gaza, the military from Gaza, exchange the rest of the hostages, and then establish. The sticking point was the establishment of Hamas to leave them alone, and Israel doesn't want to do that. And of course, he didn't want to do that. Benjamin Netanyahu shouldn't have been supporting Hamas all these years. Maybe that's the problem you deal with right there. But whether it came from Qatar or Egypt or Israel or Hamas itself, we've always had it laid out here. But now, like, mysteriously, we have this deal and Hamas wants to add stuff to it and no one can tell us what it is. Like, I don't know. I'm having a hard time believing that. And I don't think you're wrong about Biden trying to, force Netanyahu or shame him into trying to accept the ceasefire. I am surprised he thought this would work. I really am. Like, why would you think, like, based on everything we've seen from Benjamin, not just from this year, but, his entire career, why would you think you could embarrass him into stopping an aggression like this when it's the only thing? He's been holding on by his fingernails to power for years now. Like, I remember like 4 or 5 years ago, I thought he was done. I thought, yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu's out, but he's a cockroach. He just finds his way to, to survive the nuclear blast. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't get what's going on here. I'm surprised Biden thought that would work. Like, honestly, I'm surprised that it would work. But we'll just have to see. But it's not looking good, folks. It ain't.
It isn't. And to circle back to what you were saying before about the hostage rescue, the reason it does seem impressive, right? Like you gotta try to kill 200 people.
That's a huge number of people. And
the reason that it is so high is because they did try. Like they so I'm gonna read this bit. This is coming from The Intercept, and this is a medical aid worker describing what happened. And wait a second. Never mind. Go to a comment while I pull this up because I have the wrong thing.
All right. So Ben asked, "Is Hamas evil?" Now that's a good question. I know why we throw the word evil around a lot sometimes, but if you're just like, a problem that we have is just assigning certain people or certain groups as good or evil, which is like too easy of a way or too simplistic of a way to put it. Because overall, do I think that, unfortunately, Hamas is the only game in town when it comes to defending the rights or defending the people of Gaza. So, like, my vitriol towards Gaza, pales in comparison to the IDF in particular. Now, that doesn't mean Hamas is just good. That, if they were a political party here, Hamas does some awful shit. They really do. And so I don't want to just say that, I fully support everything about Hamas and everything, but their goal to, fight for some sort of justice and liberation for Gaza, I'm all for that. It's like some of their tactics I don't
if you've ever seen, you ever seen Ted Lasso, TJ?
No, I've never. I know what you're talking about. I've never seen it though.
So there's a character in Ted Lasso who he starts out getting picked on, and you empathize with him because he's getting picked on, and it turns out later in the series he's kind of a dickhead, and you realize that you only empathize with him because he was getting picked on. And that's kind of like the thing with Hamas. It's like they're awful. Like they are awful. They do very, very, very bad things. But the problem is that the reason they are so awful is because of the abuse that the people have suffered and been put through, and they can only turn to awful. Like they don't have other options available to them.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, they are evil, but there's a root to that evil, and it isn't just inherent in their DNA. Yeah. It's caused by something, and that something is the almost 2-decade-long blockade of Gaza, causing immense poverty and suffering, and that's why they exist there.
The evil of Hamas is a lot more defensible than the evil of the IDF. It doesn't compare at all. Look at any chart of the Israeli versus Palestinian casualties since 1948. It is staggering seeing what's going on.
But yeah, I can circle back here because I have the article ready.
Let's go.
This describes the scene of this hostage rescue, and what is going to be immediately apparent is that this doesn't sound like any hostage rescue in any news report or any movie that you've ever seen, because it wasn't really a hostage rescue. So on Saturday at around 11 a.m., Abu Nasser, who's the person being interviewed, was standing by a window in the home when missiles began to rain down on the area. One struck just 20 meters away. The area turned to ashes, Abu Nasser told me in a Sunday interview. I couldn't find my wife and started calling out to those around me to ensure that they were still alive. Driven outside by fear of his building being bombed, Abu Nasser was confronted by a massive Israeli attack unfolding around him. The streets were filled by a swarm of quadricopter drones equipped with small arms. Tank tracks could be heard nearby. U.S.-made Apache attack helicopters hovered near homes that were hit with missiles. We heard people crying for help in the bombed houses, Abu Nasser said. They had martyrs and injuries, but we couldn't help them. The scene was gruesome. The streets were filled with civilian body parts, he said, and many injuries bleeding out without ambulances being able to reach them. The sustained attack on Nuseirat, I'm going to guess, lasted about 75 minutes. The operation ended, but we stayed in our places, afraid to move for a long time, Abu Nasser recalled. It was a horrific scene and a difficult time that I had ever experienced in my life. Does that sound like a hostage rescue to you, TJ? Does that sound like any hostage rescue you've ever heard of in the history of hostage rescues?
No, I'm glad you read that, because I was curious about this myself, because I was just thinking, like, you're telling me they had 200 people guarding 4? I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. And I was wondering what was going on here. So they just started, just bombing and raining ammunition and weapons and, mortars and stuff on people and blowing them to pieces. And it's like, and I read something about, I don't know if you guys have seen, so the Israeli, official, the Israel's official Twitter account, they posted this article or this screen capture that said there are no innocent civilians in Gaza. They posted it and they reposted it again. And they were saying that, well, a lot of the people who were killed in this raid, they're mad that, they were civilians. But you got to understand that, these civilians, not only do they support Hamas, but they're actively aiding them. And I saw someone say that the guy who was holding these 4 hostages was like, I don't know, a dentist or an accountant or something. And I read more about it, and which wasn't true. Shocking. That wasn't true. What had happened is on their way, he was on the first floor of this apartment complex. They killed him. And then they went to like the 3rd floor, and the hostages were there in a completely different room and a completely different level and stuff. And so they just lumped him in. It's like, well, he's involved here, which you don't know. You have no fucking clue if that's true. But, just seeing the rampant disregard that they've had for, civilian life ever since they started, it kind of makes sense now that they just indiscriminately killed a bunch of folks. And I got to wonder if they killed hostages doing that. I mean, like, maybe there could have been a dozen hostages there.
I think that I did hear a report, and this is unconfirmed, but I did hear a report that they did kill a hostage.
Which wouldn't shock me, yeah.
Now,
if that's your
was,
method.
That was coming, when people are like, Hamas-controlled health ministry, it's a bullshit epithet for propaganda purposes. But I will say, if I was Hamas in this situation, I would also say they killed a hostage, whether they did or not. So maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But Hamas is saying it was 200. Israel saying it's less than 100. Which and that's how you know that this is bullshit, because even if Israel's telling the truth, 100 people to save 4? Like, what is your fucking math doing here, guys? Like, how can anyone ever, in a hostage rescue situation, an airstrike should never be involved? Can you imagine, like, there's a hostage rescue, hostages at a bank in New York City, and all of a sudden, boom, military comes in, bombs the fucking I don't know, New York City building, the
New York City building,
the world famous New York Empire State building, and it's just like, yeah, guys, we had to do that to rescue the 4 hostages. Like, no, get the fuck out of here.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me whenever there's like a school shooting or a mall shooting or whatever, shooting we happen to have in the United States. And after it's over, we go through the same discourse, this only happens in the United States. We do some gun control. And then the right wingers say, how dare you politicize this action? How dare you? And I always say, look, folks, if I'm killed in a mass shooting, you have my permission. Politicize the fuck out of it. You're getting my permission right now. Go for it. Like, be as political as possible. Like, politics got me killed. Let my death, do something to fix the politics. And with this situation, here once again, this is another TJ pending future disaster blanket statement of release here. If I'm ever kidnapped and being held hostage, and you need to kill 200 people to save me, let my ass sit there. Do not kill 200 people to save me. Or I guess in this case, don't kill 50 people to save me, and then 50 people each to save the other 3 people. They can kill 200 altogether. Yeah, we've been sitting here the whole time. We'll be fine. Just come back and get us when you work something out. Don't slaughter, 10 baseball teams that can just save my life. Don't do that.
Because I've seen people say exactly that, and I see people responding and being like, yeah, what if it was your kid who was being held hostage? Wouldn't you kill as many people who could have taken? Like, yeah, I would. I mean, first of all, I don't have a kid, so like, I don't know what the fuck I would do. But like, if I did, I could imagine myself doing that. Mm-hmm. But I would acknowledge it's because I'm incredibly biased and doing the wrong thing to save my child. Like I would recognize my actions are wrong. I might do them anyway because I love my child more than I love being morally right. But I wouldn't argue that my actions were morally justified.
That's it. That's the point. Like, yeah. So if John did that, and you're like, okay, buddy, you got to go to jail now. John be like, all right, let's do it. But Israel's not doing that. Israel's not doing that. Like, no, I'm actually not going to. We should end the segment there.
We'll end the segment there,
Yeah, because I was about to go on a weird tangent here that I didn't want to include in the clip. But this is very weird without a third guest, by the way.
It is. No, it kind of feels like a Wednesday, but we're structuring it like a Thursday. It is definite, and also like I'm like just exhausted today.
Me too, man. Yeah. So
we'll see how these episodes do. Ben, let us know how we're doing.
Our best performing show yet. So
hey, I'm glad we're fuck your guests. No more guests.
No more guests. Run 2 miles before the show starts. We'll just go. But do you? So you remember when Harambe, the gorilla, died? And so
I was in college when Harambe died. It was a major incident in my life.
Memes are everywhere. Well, the world hasn't been the same since. I mean, really, like that's when things really started to go downhill. But so for those of you who don't know, this is like, what year was this, John? Like 2017? 2016?
I think it was 16, yeah.
16. So in the Cincinnati Zoo, a 3-year-old fell into the gorilla pit, and he was hanging out with this gorilla named Harambe. And so people freaked out because they didn't want the gorilla to kill the child. And so they shot him. And a lot of people, Harambe will be avenged. Yo, he's got his revenge on us. Like Harambe has been torturing us from beyond the grave for, nearly a decade now. So, but a lot of people would ask like, oh, should they have shot the gorilla? And then I learned, because my first thought was, well, man, why didn't you just trank the gorilla? Let's shoot him with a tranquilizer and be fine. And that's when I found out that tranquilizer darts don't work like the movies, that you've got to calibrate the tranquilizer. Of course, it makes sense. Doctors do this when you think about it. Like, you got to calibrate it to exactly how much the animal weighs. And, you probably don't know at the top of your head how much this gorilla weighs. And when you shoot them, they don't fall down and collapse. Like in the movie, it takes a long time for the trank to actually go through. But I remember Matt Walsh. I'll never forget Matt Walsh saying that he was really upset that people were getting mad that they killed this gorilla to save a child. And he's like, listen, if a child is in danger, I would kill 1,000 gorillas to save that child's life. And then someone commented on there, was like, hey, would you suck the dick of 100 gorillas to save a child's life? Matt Walsh was like, hey, would you? Matt Walsh didn't answer that. So it's like, I mean, if the principle here is that you
logically speaking, you have to.
Yes, it's like, yeah, I would like, please explain to me why you would.
Can you just imagine? I just want to see Matt Walsh just like put in a situation where he has to suck 100 gorillas' dick to save a child life, live stream so everyone can watch it. It's like that episode of Black Mirror where
I was right about to Black Mirror,
where the PI has to fuck the pig, and it's like, well, I guess I got to do this. But it's just like, yeah, no, I can't publicly allow this child to die. I gotta suck 100 gorilla dicks.
Wait, hold on. No, Ben, I didn't say I would kill 1,000 gorillas. Matt Walsh said he would kill 1,000 gorillas. Like,
I have to agree with Matt Walsh here. I would definitely kill the gorilla, but I think Matt Walsh is also like just doesn't get the joke. He's incapable of getting the joke about Harambe.
That's good. So the Black Mirror episode that John is referencing, from Black Mirror season 1 from way back in the day.
It was the first episode, or at least in America was the first episode. I don't think it was in Britain, but yeah.
Oh, Ben was clipping me out of context with the, I would kill 1,000 gorillas. TJ, animal rights hater. But it was a story in which I think the princess of England had gotten kidnapped, if I remember correctly. And the by a terrorist, and the prime minister said that he would only release the princess if the prime minister fucked a pig on national television, and the guy did it. Which I remember watching. I was like, I don't think you would do. Because first off, countries say it all the time. We don't negotiate with terrorists. That's like the number one thing countries say all the time, and that's for like money and stuff. They're certainly not doing it for bestiality. I don't think that's going to work. Oh, Ben, watch Black Mirror season 1, man. Check out Black Mirror season 1. John, do you remember?
That's the worst episode in season 1 of Black Mirror, I think. But yeah, it's weird they led with that one.
Do you remember the episode White Panda? The one where like that girl is being chased by people in those masks and she doesn't know why.
And it's because she's like,
well, don't ruin it for Ben.
Yeah.
No, that's my favorite.
Yeah, my favorite is, I like the ones with the eye recorders.
Oh, that was my second favorite. That's my second favorite one.
Because the thing about them is that they will 100% exist in my lifetime.
Man,
it's so interesting to watch a sci-fi thing about something that you know you will experience. Like watching like Star Wars, it's like, I'm never going to experience space with
right.
This, but I will probably live in a time where I can record every single thing I see. And
that's what made that episode so great. Because I think we all had that thought. We're like, this is not in the wildly distant future. Like if this happened like 25 years from now, 15, I'd be like, okay, all right, I can see that happening. And then it makes you wonder what life would be like. Because now nothing is private. Essentially nothing is private at that point where everyone's being recorded 24/7.
At all times, constantly. And it will happen. Like it will.
It definitely will.
I see no future in which that technology doesn't exist and it is widely used by everyone.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a cell phone. And in the same way that cell phones have changed existence, I always think we're kind of just rolling on tangents here, but like I think so much, because I'm a person. You can probably Unc, you can enlighten me a little bit here, but I was born in a time when cell phones were around, but didn't necessarily have cameras. And then they had cameras, and I just kind of grew up into that. But like when I see old people like on social media on their phone recording everything, I'm just like, at some point you lived your life completely without this, and now you can't seem to live without it.
Yeah.
And I know as a 27-year-old, I actively try to use it less. And it just, I wish I could see it from like a grander God level view of like how this actually changed this every person's life, because it must rewire your brain. It must.
You've come to the right person. You've come to the right person. So it is wild, man. So I went to college in 2000. And after my first year of college, it was a very common question for people. Hey, do you have a cell phone? That was like, I remember at people, because like, maybe 10, 15% of people had cell phones. By the time I graduated, I was asking, what is your cell phone number? Like it changed like that. Like where, you know, no one had a cell phone to within 5 years, everyone had one. And yeah, in the beginning, they were really primitive. And if you were really cool, you had one that could take pictures and this looked like, you know, someone smudged Vaseline all over the camera lens. It looked like garbage or whatever, but you would never see anything like that before. And we still had T9 texting, you know, but it really became like, because back then it was still just a phone primarily, you know, you could text and you could make phone calls, but it really ramped up to actually change life in the next like 4 or 5 years when smartphones came along and everyone got smartphones. And what I talk about is, and, you know, greater access to, you know, high speed internet, you know, in that things like traveling, where you would, you know, when you had the internet and you would just print out your directions, you know, and drive around with a piece of paper, you know, going through, telling you turn by turn stuff. But then everyone got GPS. And now no one knows where anything is anymore because you just GPS everywhere. You don't memorize the route. But even stuff with like, what I talk about is flying. Flying is something where I've noticed this. First off is that before the internet, you would have to call the airport and say, hey, I want to leave on, you know, June 15th from Indianapolis to Sacramento. What flights do you have available? And they would list off these flights to you and their times. You would pick one. Okay, when do you want to come back? Really tedious shit. But now you do it all online. But even more importantly, picking people up from the airport. Because when your plane lands, the first thing you do is text the person who's going to pick you up. Hey, my plane just landed. I'm at, you know, Terminal 2, Gate C7. They meet you there. When I was a teenager and a young adult, they told you, hey, I'm landing at 8:35. That's when I'm supposed to land. I'm supposed to be at this gate. If that flight was delayed or, you know, if they missed their flight, you were just standing there. You had no way to contact them whatsoever. It's incredible we got anything done. If you were on a road trip and you lost somebody, you just fucking lost them. You had no way of knowing where they were, if they were okay, if they were even alive. You would just drive around. It's like, man, well, hopefully they'll meet us at the destination. We lived our entire lives with like the only people you could talk to basically were the people around you. And now all of us are essentially Professor Xavier. We can talk to anybody we want at any time. And it's just, it is crazy, man, because like I grew up, I was a fucking adult before I could do that stuff. And you're right. Like even like old people, the phone is essentially a part of your body now. And yeah, you adapt to it, but it is pretty wild to look back on that.
Yeah, it's great. My dog literally like knows that she will palm my arm with my phone down to get my attention, and I'm just like, and it's cute, but it's also a little embarrassing. It's like, yeah, no, I'm addicted to this thing, and you know it, dog.
Oh my god! So that's so funny you say that because so Wolfie sleeps in the bed with me. Not a very black person thing to do, with an animal sleep in the bed with you, but Wolfie, he sleeps at the foot of the bed, and whenever I'm laying down, sometimes he'll come up and he'll play or whatever. But usually he wants to be left alone in bed. The only time that he comes and bothers me in bed is when I'm on the phone, and he will like come and rub up against the phone. And like until you brought this up, I always assume, oh, maybe he likes the light on the phone, but maybe he's like, oh, what are you doing? What are you paying attention to over there? Why are you paying attention to me? I never thought about that until you put it that way. Maybe he's like, hey man, like you got a living creature over here. Why are you on this machine? Oh, now I feel embarrassed.
Yep. All right, Ben, I can't wait to get Ben's take on this. The 17-year-old.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? It's like it's
not a smartphone.
What did Ben say? Ben said the iPhone came out in 2007, changing life for millions, maybe billions of people. Yeah, so I thought it was 2008. Yeah, okay, so 2007. That does make sense.
It came out in 2007. It's like the financial crisis. It actually happened in 2007, but we remember it happening in 2008.
Doesn't it? So 2011 or 2010 is when I remember everything shifting, because yeah, it came out then, but you know, it had to grow in popularity over the years for everyone had a smartphone. I remember 2010, 2011, that's when I noticed that it was just everywhere. You couldn't get away from it. But we should get to our last topic before we run out of time. Okay,
so appreciated your Professor Xavier joke, and I have to say I did too. That was really good. It was a really good call.
I'll tell you why I use that reference, because you're all begging to know, I'm sure. But I remember when Osama bin Laden was killed, and I forget which year this was, 2009, 10, something like that. But I remember 2010. Okay, yeah. I remember that I had just started using Twitter. I had just started, and I didn't get the point of Twitter back then. Back then people were like, "Oh, you just have like this website where you tell people eating lunch right now." Haha. I was like, "That's stupid. Why would I do that?" But I had just started using it maybe a couple weeks before, and I remember seeing a bunch of tweets from places like intelligence people, like in the United States, like some people in Europe. And like there was just something brewing in their top. I was like, yeah, something big's happening. And then someone's like, hey, pretty sure the United States just killed Osama bin Laden. And then like an hour later, it was on NBC. Now back then, news didn't just break and spread over the internet like it does today. Like you had to wait for that's another thing from the old times where the news announced it. And my jaw hit the floor. I had never in my life had something like that happen where a news story that big I just had in front of me before the major networks did. And then I started preaching Twitter to everyone. I was like, hey, guys, you got it. And so the way I would describe Twitter was like that. I was like, you know how Professor X can use Cerebro to read everyone's mind? That's what Twitter is. Like you could just type in a hashtag and you can read the thoughts of people all around the world. I'd never seen anything like it. So yeah, that's why I used the Charles Xavier.
It genuinely, TJ, like I was also like, what the fuck is Twitter? I got addicted to Twitter. I still am. But now that it's not Twitter anymore,
it's
like
awful.
Now that's awful. I genuinely feel a hole in my life. Like,
it's
and it
so
has
bad,
not been
man.
filled by anything else. And I genuinely feel like something is wrong with the world because I can't touch it anymore. It's a really weird feeling. And I don't know how much it's actually affecting me, but like, I need it to come back, TJ.
I still use it, but I
do
don't
too,
have
another
fun.
option. Like I use Threads. I'm on Threads as like an influencer, but I don't like using it as much as even though Twitter sucks now. It doesn't do news. It doesn't do news, TJ.
It's so
why
bad.
do they not do news? It's so easy. Just kill Twitter, do news, and they won't do it.
I'm with Ben with like the Nazi shit. It's just it's everywhere. I mean, you can't get away from it. It's so awful. And I want to like before we get to the segment, Ben says, to him, it's just like me. We're both Marvel nerds. I take offense to this. So John, you called me a nerd. It was a month ago probably where you mentioned like, I think you mentioned my superhero shirts that I wear all the time or something.
You got Venom in the background, bro.
So yeah, I do another podcast. It's a religious podcast, and one of my co-hosts, she said something. She was impersonating me, and she gave me like a nerd voice. So I say, "Why'd you give me a nerd voice?" And she goes, "TJ, you got like Carnage and Venom behind you on the screen right now. You can't say you're not a nerd." I'm a nerd too. It was just I don't know, it's funny. But all right, so let's close things out here with some more bad news. Well, I mean, who cares? But it's just like it's interesting to me that the Southern Baptist Convention was held in Indianapolis. I didn't know it was here. I didn't know it was actually right across the street from where I work or whatever.
The Southern Baptist Convention is in
Indianapolis. I had that thought
Indiana?
too. I had that thought too.
Interesting.
It's like,
okay, continue.
You ever see like, people who have like the Confederate flag and shit, they're obviously assholes. But you see a guy with like a Confederate flag truck in Michigan, like, bro, what? Come on. Like you're like a hyper racist here. Like you don't even have the plausible deniability of seeing someone in like, Alabama or something. You're in Detroit with a Confederate flag. But let's just share this right here for all the good folks. So the Southern Baptist Convention voted to condemn the use of in vitro fertilization. Many high-profile legislative items came before the Southern Baptist Convention. There were like 10 items. I wish I wrote them all down because they were hilarious. At its annual meeting in Indianapolis were decided on Tuesday, except arguably the biggest ones. The convention is scheduled to, this is an old one. The resolution for in vitro fertilization is the first of its kind, staunchly anti-abortion group of politically influential evangelical Christians. So I think this is an old article, but they voted to like state as doctrine for their church that in vitro fertilization is wrong. And the reason that this is kind of a big deal is that the Southern Baptist Convention is like the largest evangelical, cohesive group in the nation, and it has a lot of political influence, and it's just pushing more toward this thing, which they haven't always been anti-abortion. Interestingly enough, is that the Southern Baptist Convention in the 70s passed a resolution basically saying that they support abortion under certain circumstances, something they would never do today, something they would never say today. But, it's all about politics and not necessarily about religion. But it does show this obvious creep, which I got to say, I didn't see coming. I really didn't, because when I was part of this group, I wasn't a Southern Baptist. We were an independent Baptist. They're pretty much the same thing.
Neither were these people. They're in Indiana.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So, but it's the same, basically the same denomination. There's very little difference. I never met anybody who was against in vitro fertilization. I can't think of anybody that I know, hundreds of these folks that even hinted at being against it. People would use in vitro fertilization, and it's only gotten to this point. I think they're kind of cornered into it when they found out what the process entails. And I had a commander in the Army who was using in vitro to get kids. And I was talking to him, and he mentioned the fact that he was Catholic. I was like, oh, okay, cool. He's like, but that puts me in a difficult situation here. I was like, oh, why? And so, with in vitro, they make a bunch of embryos because there's a good chance that the embryos won't survive the pregnancy. So you make 12 embryos, and you go through 4 or 5 of them, and you get 2 kids. Well, now you got 8 embryos left. What do you do? What do you do with them? And he was Catholic. He's like, yeah, so, we believe that, these are people. So, we can't destroy them, but it costs thousands of dollars every month to keep. And so that's just part of mutual fertilization. So I think people just thought about it more and more. And I wish I had the article written up by a guy named Al Mohler, who was the president of this industry. And he wrote a whole article talking about how we need to, make it doctrine that we don't support in vitro fertilization because we want to protect people, even the frozen ones, I think is what he said, which just made me laugh reading it. But it was always more of a Catholic thing. This has always been Catholic dog, if I remember. Am I correct there, John?
Yeah, no, it's definitely always been a Catholic thing. I grew up listening to sermons about fucking abortion, not every single Sunday, but more Sundays than you might think, and always being turned off by that. But yeah, we've talked about this before, how as much as these are the worst people, they're at the very least more logically consistent.
Yes.
Because it actually is reading the article, I was like, yeah, no, this seems like the logical conclusion of believing that an embryo is a human life. If you believe that an embryo is a human life, which is equal to me or you or a child or anyone, then killing an embryo, and they kept referring to the dignity of the dignity of an embryo, and I was just the fuck do you mean? It doesn't have a brain. What the fuck do you mean? At the dignity of an embryo? But it's the logical conclusion of this worldview that has consumed conservatives, and it is not a conservative ideological position when it comes to small government conservative, but it is a necessary bedfellows of the Republican Party with the religion and the Southern Baptists and the evangelicals. It gets them moving, and so they're gonna they have to be against it because it gets out the vote. And as you said, it was really done. It's not Dobbs was intentional legislation, but it fucked the Republican Party. They were dog chasing cars, and they got it, and they didn't know what to do once they had it. And it's always going to push farther. And I was having this thought, TJ. I was having quite a few thoughts when I was reading this article. But I was having this thought about how a lot of people will tell me, I'll be like, well, the Dems had a supermajority in 2008. Why didn't they fucking codify abortion rights into law? And the response I always hear back from that is, well, no one thought that Roe would ever be overturned. And it's okay then, but why not just do it? And because the other side has been saying they're going to do literally this for 50 fucking years. And I think it is because in the mind of liberals, it's, when we say we're going to do progressive shit, we don't actually mean it. So we assumed that the conservatives were on the same boat. We assumed that when they said they want to, get rid of abortion They were just joking, just like we just joke when we say we want universal health care. We're never going to fucking do it, but we say we're going to want to do it because that's the right side of this issue to be on, but we're not actually going to make it happen. And that's what I think a lot of Democrats thought about this issue. And no, they're going to keep pushing. That's what one should do for an issue they actually believe in, is once you get an inch, take a mile as much as you possibly can while you can. And that's what we're seeing happen here. And it's going to crush them because this is such a losing fucking argument. Like, even among staunch MAGA, like, IVF, it's antithetical to say, oh, we should stop people from being able to have children who want children. To also say we're the party of families and we want people to have kids and we want people to stay together. Oh, but if you, for any biological reason, are incapable of having children of your own, we're not going to let you use science to have them because of our bullshit logical consistency with the idea that an embryo is a fully functioning human life. But that's the position they're in. Like, that is the position they have cornered themselves into, and they can't get out of it because, of course, it is. They got their golden goose and they killed it, and now they have 2 golden eggs and nothing else. And yeah,
it is. It's they've been hoisted by their own petard in this situation here. I found the article here that I was talking about. Let's see. You hear Wolfie? He's being a big baby.
I do. Yes,
he's being very obnoxious. All right.
It's funny because neither of these articles have been the article you sent me about this topic.
Oh, really? That's so weird. I don't know.
It's a New York Times article.
Oh, it was a New York Times article. Okay, that is the one I wanted because that one talked about how there was a quote in there by a guy who said that in vitro fertilization was wrong in his mind because it allowed unmarried women and gay couples to have babies. That's another reason. Another reason to twist the knife in right there. But the Southern Baptist Convention voted on Wednesday for a resolution opposing in vitro, lamenting that the creation of surplus frozen embryos often results in the destruction of embryonic human life. The country's largest Protestant denomination urged members to carefully weigh the ethical implications of the technology while also expressing sympathy with couples who experience the searing pain of infertility. Well, I'm glad they have your sympathy. That's the important part. You can't do it. We say it's against God's rules, but we do feel bad for you. And
I want to pause this right here, TJ, because this is a tangential point, but one that I want to make because it pissed me off while reading the New York Times article. Is that this is MSNBC, not MSNBC, it's NBC5, it's a local NBC, but a ostensibly liberal-leaning media organization. And they wrote the words embryonic human life. Like, they're taking this argument at face value. That it's a thing that they have to report. These people believe it's human life, so we just have to use those words. And it pisses me off. It's the same thing I think of when people are religious, and we just have to pretend that that's different than any other ideology that's completely made up. And why do we do this? We know it's not correct, and yet our journalists are doing it anyway because reasons that are never really made clear to me.
I do hate that too, man. I'm glad you pointed that out because I didn't catch that, but I do. It's
because it's so normalized.
It's so fucking normal.
Can you imagine being a fucking professional journalist and writing the words embryonic human life? No.
It's insanity, man. It's just that if Christopher Hitchens once said that you can get away with saying and doing almost anything if you have the word reverend in front of your name. You can say the most outrageous, even the clothes you wear, man, they dress like fucking wizards. And then it's in modern times and shit with funny hats and robes and everything. And it's why do we put up with this? Why don't we just mock this with the absurdity that it is? You're right. And even granting it this gravitas, even calling them reverend or honorable and stuff like that. It's this isn't the 1500s, folks. We don't have to pretend that they have some access, some information that we don't. The resolution approved by more than 10,000 delegates near the end of the Southern Baptist Convention's 2-day annual meeting in Indianapolis, once again, strange place for the Southern Baptist Convention, affirms that embryos are human beings. Glad they cleared that up for us. From the moment of fertilization, whether in the womb or generated in the laboratory via IVF, That's the same position held by the Alabama Supreme Court in the ruling that frozen emperors. That was so funny when Alabama did that. That was so, because they're cutting themselves off here. But the picture, I think it was in the article I sent you. I don't know if you remember this, but it said there's 10,000 delegates here, and it showed a section of the people voting, like with the cards in the air. It was all dudes. Like the picture I saw was all dudes. And I was like, oh my God, can women even vote in this? And so I went and checked, and I couldn't find the rules, but I did find images of women voting. So because if it was 10,000 dudes, that'd have been too perfect. That'd have been too perfect.
That's
like,
the Catholic Church. You can't have women participating in the Catholic.
And then, yeah, so that's the basic thing there. But another thing that, since I was pretty incompetent with pulling up the article, so I'll just talk about it. But there was another resolution that they voted on, and that was whether or not to include the Nicene Creed as something that they said during church. Now,
I thought that was a specifically Catholic thing. I didn't realize.
Yes, that's what. Well, yeah, that's where I was going to go with this, because that's not something Baptists do. I can't tell you what the Nicene Creed is. I know like what it is, but I can't recite it to you at all. And so when I read that, I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. But, you know, if there's some sort of movement growing in the Southern Baptist Church where they want to recite the Nicene Creed, and it actually lost. The vote lost by like 1 or 2% or something like that. And so they're not going to recite it. But a lot of people commented on the fact that, you know what they've said every day so far at the Southern Baptist Convention? The Pledge of Allegiance. They recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States. And a lot of people are pointing out how weird that is. They're like, okay, if we're going to say something before the Southern Baptist Convention, the Nicene Creed seems to make a lot more sense than the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, that's true if you're looking at it logically, but this is political. This is
clearly they're not.
Yeah, this is politics. This entire thing's about politics. And have you seen these graphs of like the Southern Baptist membership? It's probably not. You're not Southern Baptist. I don't know why you would care about that. But, see if I can find it to share with everybody.
There was like a quote from the New York Times article. It said last month the head of the denomination's public policy arm sent a letter to the U.S. Senate, and I was like, the religious denomination has a public policy arm, and you just said that without commenting on how fucking bizarre that is. Like,
how weird that is, man. Kind of weird, right? Let me see here. Okay, I'm sure. Of course, it's not pulling up. Wolfie, pipe down, buddy. I'm sorry, buddy. Anyway, so shit. Well,
it's dead air here, folks, and we're
professionals over here. Wolfie, serenade the people.
Someone play the StreamYards. Can you hear this music?
Well, all right. I can't pull up the big screen here like I wanted to, but hopefully it's people can see what I'm talking about here. So this is the Southern Baptist Convention denomination. Now the blue lines here are baptisms, like how many people they've actually baptized into the church. And the red lines, or the red bar, are the people who have left the church. So it starts back in 2009, where you have a healthy, 350,000, 375,000 people in the church, and they only lost like 75,000. And over the years, we have an inverse relationship between the amount of people who were brought into the church and the amount of people. And now look at the red bars for 2020 through 2022. Like nearly 500,000 people a year are leaving this church. And then you have this tiny percent that are growing in the baptisms. And what it's resulting in, they talked about it in these articles that I read about because it's fascinating, is that the churches are getting smaller, and it's resulting in them getting more radical, because the only people who are the liberal churches tend to die, which makes a lot of sense. And so the liberal churches don't seem to survive. The only ones that remain are the radical ones. And the people who join the churches too, a lot of them aren't joining for like ecclesiastical reasons. A lot of people are identifying with, Christianity and evangelicalism strictly for political reasons. Like they think it's the right thing to do, is what we're supposed to do. And we're seeing this now with the more rabid, reactions people are having to things that would have never even crossed my mind in all my years of my familiarity with this religious sect. That, we're going after IVF now. Like you're stopping people from having babies. The thing that you say that you want people to do, you're actually getting in the way of. So like it's kind of like the Trump thing, in which they're actually hurting their own cause and they don't seem to realize it.
Yeah, but this, I would be interested to know though, because that's happening across every religion. Like the Catholic Church is the same. All religions are having less attendance, less people joining, which makes sense, logically speaking, through the progress of time. But like, I wonder if it's worse for the Baptists, evangelicals, than it is for others.
I don't know if it's worse, but the evangelicals and the Baptist and stuff are, because like Catholics don't strike me quite nearly as political as evangelicals. Like I don't, or at least not as politically conservative. I'll put it that way. Not as politically conservative.
Yeah, no, there's definitely more Democrat. Fucking JFK and Biden.
Yeah, Biden.
Yeah, like that. But you go to a fucking Catholic mass, they're definitely not fucking supporting abortion. They're definitely not fucking doing a couple, like the gay shit is just starting to hit mainstream Catholicism. Like the Pope is cool with gay people now, but that's a very new thing. Like, yeah, like Catholics are more liberal than evangelicals, but so are most breathing human beings.
Exactly. Well, because like evangelicalism isn't so much a religion. I mean, it's a religion, but it's like a civic religion. It's all focused around politics. Like it builds all of their thought processes. So yeah, all religions are shrinking. I mean, like, well, most of them are shrinking, and maybe the really small ones are growing. Like Islam, maybe that's growing. But like the major ones are shrinking. But with this particular sect in specific, it's shrinking and becoming rapidly more religious, and they're going to keep doing this, to the detriment of their own cause. I don't know. Oh, well, I think we got to wrap it up here, folks. It's 8:30.
Right. Ben, thank you very much for joining us, and to the rest of our viewers as well, because there are other viewers, Ben.
There are. We're down to 6 now, but that's a very good number for folks like us, for a humble podcast like this.
Yes. We'll be back. Oh, we have to record our outro, TJ.
Oh yeah, man. How do we even do that without?
I'll start. I'll start off. You dunk it down.
All right, let's go.
All right, guys, if you made it to the end of this episode, you probably noticed we didn't have a guest this week. It was just me and TJ, and we had a great time. We're always looking for new guests, so if you have any content creators that you want to see on this show, make sure to tag us in their videos, and we'll reach out to them and see if they can be a guest. And if you want to hear from TJ, I don't know, TJ, say something.
Yeah, no problem, John. Thanks so much for that. If you want to watch the show, we really recommend you do so and leave some comments. Leave some comments that are better than one Ben left here, where he's talking about Islam, saying, I call the religion of a billion people small, which I did not. I was saying in the United States, Islam is a very small religion, and so it's growing. So watch us and pay better attention than Ben. We'll appreciate it. Just giving you a hard time, Ben, but that is what I said. I was talking about the United States. The United States. Yeah, Islam is a small religion. Yeah, Islam is like the second largest religion on earth. I know it's very big, but it's yeah, okay, buddy. I still can't believe this guy's a kid. When his username on TikTok has been the Socialist Jew, that sounds like a 55-year-old man has that name. Like it's odd that I did not expect a high schooler to have that name, but we appreciate you, Ben. We appreciate the good and everybody else watching too. Thank you so much. We'll catch you guys next time.